Hi guys, it's Colette. Welcome back to my channel. This is a subscriber request. There's been a few people that would like to know more about my guide, White Storm, how we met, how we worked together, all sorts of things. And I'm going to tell a kind of general story today because I know at times his life and mine have been so intertwined that I could probably not stop talking about him if I was selling the whole caboodle of readings and healings and all sorts of things. So I'll just fill you in on some of the points that I think are really quite important, or just favourite bits that stick out. Now, I myself have done a video on how to journey to connect with your spirit guide, and it's been very well received. And I have White Storm is my main spirit guide, but I have worked with others in the past as well for specific things, and which have journeyed to meet them. But the problem I have and the beauty of what I have is that I've never not known White Storm. And there's an explanation for that. I don't remember a time without White Storm, ever. And I thought that was really, really odd, because when I talk to people, there's all these conversations of, oh, my guide started coming to me in my 40s, or I felt someone around but I didn't recognise them, or what it was or who it was until I was in my 20s or 30s. But White Storm and me seemed to come as a kind of package, and I've talked to him on many occasions about things that I've thought, well, what was this about, or whatever, and I've taken on board his answers. The first thing I remember is, my family were always aware that I was talking to spirits or had imaginary friends or whatever, but I think when I was very young, it was the 60s, so my dad and I watched cowboy and Indian films in the afternoons, so it was like Native Americans called Indians, and there was no kind of, you didn't know about any different tribes or anything, it was all just cowboys and Indians, and in a way goodies and baddies, and that's just the way it was. But I had a little boy that played around me, and just, he was my pal, really. And because maybe what I'd seen on the TV, I started calling him Nindian boy, not Indian, but Nindian for some reason. He's my Nindian boy. And that's all I knew him as for many, many years, Nindian boy. And a lot of the time I just didn't call him anything. It was just when he came, and we just would, maybe sit, or we would chat, or we would play. And yes, I have experience of playing with my sister in spirit, even though she passed before I was born. I've played with White Storm in spirit. I've had conversations with him. But I would say the first time I really remembered him about, or I remember seeing an Indian boy and having to explain who the Indian boy was, I might have been about 4 or 5. Because I remember at school, we had this, I've been back, have you ever gone back to your primary schools? And they're tiny. Well, I thought there was this huge big bit of land where we used to play cowboys and Indians, and I always used to remember I never wanted to be a cowboy, always wanted to be an Indian because my pal was Indian, so I was always an Indian when we had our sort of battles. So I remember kind of linking myself to the Native Americans because and always wanting to have the bows and arrows rather than be the cowboys who were obviously meant to be so superior, etc. So just flicking forward, I talked to him as an adult, particularly my late 30s, my 40s, and I had time to ask him some questions. And I said, well, when did you come to me? And he said, because you know, a lot of people get their guides after they've gone through major trauma. There's the aspect of the wounded shaman and people going to death's door and coming back and stuff, and then having their guide or having the enlightenment they need. And he said, yeah, I've been with you since your birth. I was there at the other side of it. Right, okay. Now, in my memoirs, I go into the fact that basically my mum and dad were advised not to go ahead with the pregnancy with me because she was very poorly. Her blood pressure was through the roof and she was just failing. And she'd 3 other children. She'd had one that had passed. And basically they said they were going to go for it. Now, they said that the miracle happened, 2 miracles. One, that I was born quite early and was taken away and looked after. I'd sort of died and was resuscitated when I come out. My mum was taken and given a full hysterectomy because they found that her uterus was full of cancerous growths. So when they took everything away, my mum went on to live till she was 74. Sorry about that. That might beep a little. I've got something else running on my computer, bear with me. So they got the baby and it also saved her life. But there was a 3rd miracle that day because White Storm came to me. Maybe I'm lucky enough to have gone through my long night of the swords or whatever, actually trying to get into the world. So White Storm assures me that he's been there since that. So that's good. But it meant I never really had to make big plans to get to know him. He was about, and sometimes I just absorbed things. You know how if you've got a pal, you don't necessarily ask them, what about this, what about that? You absorb it by what they say to you. So growing up, he was just around, and then I remember in my teens not been that interested in him, and he kind of waned. The one thing I will say, he showed himself growing as I grew. That was an interesting fact. Started off as a wee boy, when I remember him bit by bit went through maturity, almost at the same pace as I did. So anyway, let's see. In my 20s, I started to think about the tarot. I started to examine my mediumship, and I started to get very pulled into the new way. Although I was working as a pharmacist, I was so open to everything. And in my 20s, I needed an awful lot of care and attention, because if anybody's read my memoirs, that was a complete time of opening up. It was a time of seeing big things. It was a time that could have been really traumatic, but I was lucky because I had White Storm and he was just there in the background, and I started getting more and more just aware of him about, and I would ask him things and he would soothe me or whatever. But again, it wasn't until I actually started doing readings and actually helping other people that he literally came and was, right, I'm here, as though you're not doing this yourself. So I always believe I had good clairvoyance myself, but with White Storm with me, and another ingredient which seemed to be Rorig Tarot, always said there was a sort of triumvirate there. There was White Storm, there was me, and there was Rorig, and putting the 3 of them together was spot on readings. I don't know why, it just worked. But anyway, he seemed to be in the background while I was developing, and then when I went to work when I gave up pharmacy in my 35, I think I was, and started coming, had my own premises and started fully working with it, that he was there, and it was a joy. The only thing is, when I first started, before I had premises and stuff, I wouldn't naturally sort of say, oh, this is White Storm, he's given this. I would just let it flow as part of the reading, because I felt people sometimes were spooked out when if I would go thank you or whatever, then they'd be like, what's that behind me or whatever. That's the thing, he always stands in front of me to my left hand, basically. So I kind of never overly thanked him, but bit by bit as time went on, I thought, well, I would maybe give something that I got from the cards, and he would say a name, or he would say a region, or he would say something, and I'd just pass it on, and the person would go, you know. So it was like we were totally working in tandem, that I was reading the cards very well, and you know, being able to explore them very well, but he would give the icing on the cake that would be the bit that people go away talking about. So, and all the way through my searches, I'd started off being very, very involved in Celtic stuff and feeling Celtic magic, exploring a lot in Scotland and even Brittany, all the Celtic stuff in France. And that started to change, and I started to feel more pulled towards the Native American spirituality, particularly the shamanic aspect of it, connection to all things, connection to everything having a spirit, etc. And that's when White Storm was very much there. So I'd walked that talk for a wee while, and one weekend I was doing a series of sweat lodges, and it was with a new elder, and it was a wonderful time. I mean, it was very much, I think I put, apart from my girls and my business, everything else was about these teachings and seeing who was where and how I could maybe get to them or they could get to me. So anyway, I had a particularly wonderful sweat lodge, 2 in a row, one night and one the next day, and it just blown me away, the stuff, and I could feel White Storm in the lodge with me, and a lot of people that were in it felt it as well, felt him as well. So anyway, I remember taking a walk after it, and I was going down to where it was on, there's a farm and all sorts of stuff, but there's a wee stream that I normally went to, a wee burn, and sit and just take things in, have time to myself. But on the way there, I kind of get distracted and just sat in the grass. And I remember the comicalness of this, because if anybody can imagine it with me, I sat down and there was an enclosure behind me that had goats in it. And they were all just jumping about and making goat-like noises, and it just, when I look back on it, it strikes me as very funny, because I was going to a place where I thought I would have solitude and only just mild noises of nature. Instead, I ended up sitting down where I was in the journey there, surrounded by goats at the back of me. So anyway, I looked to my side and White Storm had manifested. As I say, he's not, if he's about all the time, I don't see him all the time. But when I need him, he'll manifest, or I can hear him, or I can see him fully. But it's not that he's walking about at my shoulder all the time or whatever. That's not, and there's a reason for that. So anyway, to cut a long story short, after the second sweat lodge of that weekend, one of the elders had come over and said, I have your spirit name, and I was like, that's amazing, that's something. And he said, at the time I thought he said, your name is Quiet as the Storm, and I thought, quiet as the storm, that's a bit of an insult, but I didn't say that, I just, great. But it was my hearing. One of the women came up that was with him, and she said, that's a wonderful name, Quiet's the Storm. And I said, oh, is it not Quiet as the Storm? And she said, oh, no, it was Quiet's the Storm, she who quiets the storms. And she said, and you must be recognising that you quieten people's storms, or that do you know weather? And I was like, oh yeah, I love weather, the weather systems and patterns are something I've always been interested in. So anyway, I was given this name, Quiet's the Storm. So sitting in front of the goats, and I'm bounding about, and White Storm sat beside me, and he said, it's a good name you've got. And I said, oh, and I thought, I don't know his name. I mean, but this time I must have been about 36, 37. And I didn't know his name. I just called him my guide, or an Indian boy, believe it or not. That was just like a name. And he said, it's a good name, Quiet's the Storm. He said, my name's White Storm. And I was like, oh, that's wonderful, White Storm. So I sat and I thought about it for a wee while, and I said, always remember that we both get Storm in our name. And I was like, fair enough. And then that was that for a wee while. I sat and I was more thinking of my own name and what it would mean to me as I went forward, and he left me to it. So that went on, and I was just so happy that I'd got his name. So White Storm gave his name as White Storm, Ichamna. And yeah, what happened after that? Let me see if I've lost my check. So yeah, so that was that. And just jumping ahead a wee bit, I realised at one point that I really do things in honour of him at the winter solstice and the summer solstice, sometimes the equinoxes. And I remember at one point he said he was born at Snow Goose Moon. I was like, right, so I thought, oh, that's a Capricorn, or, you know, for that life he was showing. Sorry, this is a muddle, but I'm just trying to, there's so much I could tell, but I don't want to be here forever. Anyway, so I remember thinking, oh, such a, you know, White Storm, that's a beautiful name. What's the history to it? Where does it come from? And he looked at me and he said, I was born in a white storm, a snowstorm, so I was called White Storm. I was like, really, is that it? And he's like, yeah, that's it. So you see, we have a great relationship. I mean, I can say to him, is that it? And he's like, yeah, that's it. So that was a bit of a laugh, because I was thinking, you know, I thought so much on my name, quiet's the storm, and worked with it and honoured it and whatever. So when I came to ask him, what about you? And he was just called White Storm because he was born in a white storm, basically. Now, he's also given me little bits of his life that indicate he didn't make it very long in life. I feel he died when he was 29, and that brings me great sorrow, because he didn't achieve what he could have done in that life. But that life is just one of the lives that this being has had. This being spirit guide has lived many, many lives. He's an evolved guide, and that particular life, he died. Now, I still haven't looked into it, or why he died, or how he died, because I think it would distress me, and I found out the reason for that. And one of the reasons was I was actually in that particular past life with him. Now, I didn't know that for a long time, but I couldn't bear to ask him how he died or even imagine it. So, but bit by bit, people came to me for readings, and I would pick up this life, and bit by bit, members of my soul tribe seemed to be connected with that life. And I was like, this is crazy, because this life that we're talking about was before horses came to the United States. So it was nomadic, but not quite as nomadic. So he didn't have a horse, and it was so that it must be from maybe the 13th century or whatever. But anyway, get back on course. So yeah, there's someone that's quite dear to me that I did a reading for her on a past life, and it was past life that came up, and I was completely gobsmacked, because I saw that she was White Storm's wife, and it just blew me away that this young woman sitting in front of me, who I knew, she wasn't a client, she was someone that I knew, albeit I'd only come to know her in the last 12, 14 years. But she had been White Storm's wife, and I had also a connection to some of her family members, and I decided while she was there to look, and what I saw was that She was White Storm's wife, and I was her mother-in-law, which made it that I was White Storm's mum in that life. And that just, believe me, it took me a while to get my head around that one, that my spirit guide, who's teaching me and who keeps me right here and who shows himself as part of that life, shows himself as the person he was in that life, and in that life I was his mother. So that's a biggie. I still get quite upset. I still can't bear to think of how he died in that life, but that makes more sense now. Do you see what I mean? Because I would be his mother, and I believe I was alive when it happened, because I can't bear to think of it. So anyway, now sometimes some of the young women that I've mentored for their tarot practice or whatever have actually worked with White Storm. Other people have felt him around them, and they'll say, but is he not yours? And that'll be like, whoever this being is, I don't feel he's just associated with me. I mean, it would be nice, but it'd be quite selfish. He's bigger than that. I mean, he's taken me journeys to see him in his soul form, and the Native American life is just one way of showing that. There have been hundreds and thousands of other lives for him, and say I come back and say maybe I'm Chinese and I'm accepting of Chinese culture or whatever, he may well come to me again, but show himself as a guide that I would naturally connect with. So he could show himself as Chinese, or he could show himself as a master or whatever. So that Native American life, I believe, is an important life, because it's the life that he's shown me that I was in with him, and I think that's very important. There may well be others, but if there are, I don't really know them at this moment in time, and I'm quite happy. As I say, that realisation only came in the last maybe 8-9 years, because I'd wondered, if I'm reading for people that I love that are part of my soul tribe, then he must be for them too. And so many people have felt him, they've worked with him, they've used him, or they've got healing from him. That's another thing. He's actually been, there was someone that was very poorly and he gave healing, and then they got so much better. He's a huge being. Is he the Native American shell that he shows himself covered in? No, he's not. We can't comprehend who, what he is. He's taken me journeying, and what I saw, kind of, if he had presented himself to me as his soul energy, his spirit energy, if he'd presented himself to me for the first time, say in my 20s, as that, I would have gone as far as I could in the opposite direction. I wouldn't have been able to tolerate the information. I wouldn't have been able to tolerate the feelings and the expansion that happened then. So he showed himself right from my birth as a wee boy that I could understand, because I'd been in a past life, and it was a past life that I, even as in my teens and 20s, I very much was pulled towards Native American art, Native American studies. So there we go. So, and I've told you about my Mary Campbell life, and that was another Native American life. This one's a very different one at a very different time in a different century, but that's the one that White Storm's from. So there's one other thing I'd like to say. Yeah, Soul Tribe, if you feel connected to White, there's two other things I want to say. If you feel at any point that you have a connection with White Storm, don't think he can't have, because he's mine. He's not, he's ours. Because if he's mine and he works through me and he works with me and we do things for the channel and for people, then he's there for you too. And I know quite a few people that regularly can feel him, feel his energies and know he's there, sometimes see him. So what happened in the middle of all this was interesting. Yep. About maybe 10, 15 years ago, 10 years ago or less, I was doing a reading, and it was a regular client that had come every year or so, and in the middle of it she said, I would love to see White Storm. And as she said it, I looked over at him, and she turned and looked, and she saw him. She nearly fell off her chair because he's a big being, but she saw him. And she was like, oh my, I don't need to see him again. She was very flummoxed by it, because although she said she wanted to see him, I don't think she really did, because once she saw him, she was like, it was confirmed that he was there, and he'd shown herself to him. So anyway, she was flustered, got her calmed down, and she went out, and it was a morning reading, and she was going into Glasgow to meet a friend, and she was waiting for the friend. She'd her back to a card shop. You know how the cards face out the way, and as she turned round, there was a Native American card with a face on it, and she was like, oh, that's really like him, that's him. So she bought it. She didn't say anything to me, but she posted it, and she said, I saw him, this is what he looked like, and then I stood, and then I was pointed out this card with his face on it. Now, the face was actually, I believe, of Sitting Bull. But when she sent me this card in the envelope, it was very, very like White Storm, although it wasn't quite. So I had kept the card, because she was right. You know, the shape of the head and everything was very, very like Sitting Bull. What happened later was I had the chance to talk to an artist about my card, basically, and he agreed that if I gave him more about White Storm, he would try and translate it to paper. It was like the nose needs to be that wee bit longer and broader, and the eyes are smaller, and blah blah blah, and he worked with all that, and he gave me this pencil drawing or pen drawing, and the one of Sitting Bull had kind of a Yankee jacket on it, and obviously that is not White Storm's time, so we took all that out, and he just worked mainly with the face and the feathers. So let's see if I can brighten this up and bring it up to you. This is the artist impression of White Storm, and I'm going to put this up on my community tab too. Is it looking? So the card did have Sitting Bull on it, but with the features changed, some of the markings changed. It's still not quite him, but it's as near, I think, as we're going to get, and it's a big. It's in a frame up there, but I wasn't going to take it off the wall and sit like, oh, here's White Storm. So, that's White Storm. There's loads more that, can pass on. I actually felt as though we're getting to the point, the more the channel develops, the more he'll maybe pass on words of knowledge or focuses on things. And I knew that was happening a few months back, and then I got caught up on, obviously, in grandchild and babies and stuff. So it's something I'll be aware of. But know that as I do my readings, the mediumship ones and the weekly tarot card, that he's normally there. One time he was with me, and a man came in for a reading, and I looked, and White Storm went, whoop, no, not reading for him, and disappeared. And I thought, oh, brilliant. And the man actually was a convicted drug dealer who wanted to ask me something, but knowing that White Storm was like, no, I'm not reading for him, I did my best to give a quick answer and get him out the door. So there's only once that White Storm's ever gone, nope. His personality as White Storm, he can be very brooding. He has a wicked sense of humour. I think he likes even picking up things from the modern world, you know, and making them fun. Like, I remember one time I was struggling to get something and I got it and he went, "Duh," like Homer Simpson. I was like, what happened there? So he's off the moment, but I don't know what to say about him, because our life is so entwined. Yeah, normally shows himself wearing kind of winter skins and just a few feathers. But when Jim and I got married, 2005, we had a legal ceremony and a Celtic hand fasting, and then at night I changed into some, again, it's not like culture appropriation. I have some feathered headbands that I like. I have some clothes that would be seen as, you know, maybe boho or whatever. I changed into them, and the people that were there were such a mix. Some had drums, some had bodhrans, some had shamanic drums or whatever. So it was like legal Celtic hand fasting, and then very much went into tribal, like Afro-Celt. Oh, stunning, absolutely stunning. So anyway, on the day of our wedding, when we were just finishing off the hand fasting, I looked to the side and I saw White Storm standing between other people, and he had all kind of white calf skin on and white feathers in his hair, and that's the only time I've ever seen him as he shows himself to me, in a different outfit as such. Obviously when he was a wee boy it's different, but I'm talking as he showed me him and we've been adults together, he always seems to look the same way. But at Jim and I's wedding celebration, he turned up for the party, put it that way. So I'm going to stop at that, because I could keep adding and adding and adding. Maybe I'll do White Storm Part 2 at one point. Let me know if you like that, and if you've any questions, put them below and I'll either get back to you or I'll put them aside for a White Storm Part 2. I think the main thing is that I've been very, very lucky. I've never had to seek White Storm out. I've never had to get to know him as such. By the time I was ready to walk my talk and work with him, I was so familiar with him. He felt very much like a brother. Certainly he felt like family. I just didn't realise that I'd been his mum. The funny thing is, the relationship we have just now isn't in any way like that. It's like I'm totally in awe of what he can do, and I'm totally in awe of the being that he is, that sometimes manifests as White Storm. I'm in awe of him, and when he shows himself as White Storm and we work together, we got on like the best pals. And also at times he tells me off because he is my mentor, he's my teacher. So anybody that's come for readings or worked at workshops with him, they know they know the way he chats back to me, they know the way he tells me off, they know how vicious his sense of humour is. And many people, and you'll know who you are, whether you're on Facebook, whether you're old clients, whether you've been to workshops, whether you've worked with me with White Storm and healings or whatever, you know who you are, you know the things that you've got from White Storm, and you know that you've been touched by a higher guide. And I just think that's wonderful. And that's why I say, yes, he is here for me, but he's there for the other people that need him too. I would say because I'm doing less readings now, he's not forced to be with me like in all those reading spaces. So, you know, he may be out with some of the women I've mentored, he may be out doing other things. He's not exclusive, but he is a bit, if you know what I mean. He's here when I need him. But again, there's nothing to say that a being of his magnitude couldn't be with me and be with thousands of other people at the same time. Do you see what I mean? Oh, it would do it in your head so much. That's why I don't go there so much. I go with what I've seen or know, and then have a wee think about it, and then my head clogs up a bit and I go, right, okay, acceptance. As one very, very lovely man said to me, the great mystery wouldn't be a great mystery if we knew what it was. So I'll go with that. There's things we know, there's other things we can't comprehend. And give me a thumbs up, leave questions if you want, and let me know if you like this one. I certainly enjoy telling you, but that is 36 minutes. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Enjoy a coffee with it, okay? It's a long one. Bye now. Many blessings.